we're seeing faster growth in the first 3 months of this year than we've seen for at least a decade. And the underlying growth rate is about 5% for passengers, more than 7% for cargo. And I think the underlying theme here is the exchange rate. We're seeing tourists from long-haul destinations coming into the UK and spending money here, and we're seeing the benefits for exporters getting out and selling their goods, and now those goods are trading around the world. So this is very much part of the export-led economic growth that the Prime Minister's been talking about.
So this is almost a good news Brexit story.
Well, it's one of the benefits of Brexit. And of course, there's always two sides to any economic argument. So we don't know how long this will last. So we're making hay while the sun shines, quite literally here on a lovely sunny day at Heathrow. But of course, we have to plan for what might come next. And we're working hard to keep on reducing costs at Heathrow to make sure that we remain competitive. And you'll see that in the figures. Our costs, in spite of all the growth, coming down by about 1% over the first 3 months of the year.
Talking of Brexit, how concerned are you about a possible exit from the single aviation market for the UK? How complicated would that make life for you?
There are three issues that we are concerned about with Brexit, and we'll work with government to get the best possible outcome. The first is membership of the single aviation market. I think that's something that's in both sides' interests, so it's likely that that will continue broadly as is today. But the other two issues are around what happens with customs, and of course we are the UK's biggest port at Heathrow, with 30% of all Britain's non-EU exports going through Heathrow, so those shouldn't change. But there are of course some EU-based exports, and we want to make sure that that continues to trade smoothly. And then of course what happens at the border? Will we be able to maintain the smooth flow of passengers coming into the country who have a legitimate right to be here? And we'd like to see a border where we're showing that Britain is welcoming, open for business, and it's easy for people who can come into the country to have a quick journey through the airport here at Heathrow.
Now, clearly we've got a general election campaign upon us. How concerned are you that the third runway is going to become a political football again?
Well, I think actually the election is a good step from a third runway point of view, because what this means is that the approvals for the third runway, the final planning consent in 2020, will take place within this Parliament. And so that gives us some political certainty once we get through this election. And of course we have huge support across all the major parties for Heathrow expansion. So we can be confident of getting good support in Parliament early next year when the National Policy Statement is voted on, and then move on to get the final consent, and then start building the third runway that the UK so desperately needs to help to connect all of Britain to the growing markets of the world.
What are you hearing from airlines at the moment, John? I mean, it's interesting in your statement you point out that some passenger growth has been due to the likes of Etihad and Emirates putting on larger planes. Is there much scope for that to continue?
Well, there is scope for more growth, but actually a lot of this is also higher load factor, more passengers on the planes that we currently have. And there's a lot more price competition happening between the airlines. That's better value for passengers. There's also, of course, the growth of passengers coming into the UK just because the UK is better value for money. And I think there's a lot more scope for growth in passenger numbers here just by increasing the number of people on the existing flights. But we're also working hard to increase our connectivity, both within the UK with new flights from Flybe, from Aberdeen and Edinburgh. That's good news for Scottish businesses. And also to important markets like China. China Southern's just added another daily flight to Guangzhou, and Beijing Capital Airlines is opening a new route to Qingdao. So if we want to go and see where the beer's made, it's a fantastic opportunity.